How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And tonight is a very, very special night. I have a special guest backstage with me tonight, which I'm super stoked that he's been able to jump on tonight to talk about a legend, an absolute legend in this industry, and has definitely paved the way for us all here. But before we jump into this, guys, let's do a bit of a sound check. Give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear and see me all okay. I want to make sure everything is all good. I can see there's tons of people jumping on. Good evening, everyone. I know it's been a while since we've done a YouTube live, but we've got a thumbs up as well, so that's absolutely amazing from everyone, guys. Tonight's live is a tribute to Brian, and I want to give a brief history lesson, and I wanted to go from like the early years into now, the legacy that he's leaving with us, and I want to bring on a good friend of mine, a good friend of the communities. I know you guys will all know him, love him well, Mr. Jeremy.
What's up?
Jeremy from Brassman Reptiles. How you doing, Jeremy? You okay?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. It's kind of a sad day, but I'm trying to look at it as a very positive, a positive thing,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Brian would want us to look back and rejoice and treasure everything that he's given to the reptile community. I genuinely feel that.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, so before we jump into tonight's live, obviously you guys in the UK or wherever you are in the world, we are going to light this candle just in memory of Brian, and we'll have that on during the show. So, guys, I'd like to thank you all for being here as well. Obviously, it's sad times. It's sad times, but let's just look back over Brian's life, what he brought to the hobby. And Jeremy, I'm pretty confident, dude, you've got some great stories to tell as well.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. We've all seen the tribute posts and the news stories, and I was talking. I see he's in the chat, Matt over at Sassabeck Reptiles. He and I were talking earlier today, and he was our friend. Yeah. Right, like the big guy, Brian Barczyk, that has millions of followers all over the place. He was a friend. So it's kind of surreal seeing articles about his passing in like TMZ and the New York Times and People magazine. Like, wow. It's insane to realize the reach that he had and the impact that he had, creating this legacy. It's insane. I saw a photo my buddy Eric shared from 1990 of Brian and Lori vending at a reptile show. I'm not sure which show it was, but 1990, really like early on vending, a display of deli cups. It was insane to see. But yeah, the history of Brian is amazing.
Yeah.
And
I think what's crazy is I was looking at some stuff today and sort of then looking back and thinking, wow, like it's been, it feels like it's yesterday, but really like, some of the mutations that he brought to the hobby was like back in 2005 and even earlier than that with like the Burmese stuff, and he sort of said it plenty of times that he started out with probably one of the biggest snakes that he could have started out with, instead of going small, he went big, and that was just nuts. I just thought that was absolutely insane. When did you get to meet Brian, Jeremy?
So I met Brian in 2009. It was at a White Plains, New York Reptile Expo, and I was 15 or 16 years old, so I was geeked out to be able to meet the guy from SnakeBytes. Like,
yeah.
he had made a post. He mentioned it in one of the videos that he was going to be in White Plains, and I just remember like running to my parents, being like, "I don't care what the hell's happening that weekend. We're going to New York. Like, I got to meet this guy." And it was crazy because I got there. I saw Chewy first, so this is how far back it goes. SnakeBytes days, right? So I saw Chewy first and was like, "That's the guy. That's one of the guys. Whatever."
Yeah.
And I saw Brian, and I didn't even know what to say. Like, I just saw him walking and was like, I don't even know what to say to the guy.
Yeah.
So it was probably like an hour after I had even seen him walk through that I finally built up the courage to go say something to him. And I finally did, and just after exchanging pleasantries, he was like, "Oh, like, what do you keep?" and blah blah blah. And at that time, I had probably like, I don't know, 80 or 90 snakes, a whole bunch of different species. So I was like listing off a whole bunch of stuff, and he was like, "Whoa, how old are you? Wait, what's going? Like, what's going on?" And he was like, "We got to stay in touch." But we talked for a couple of hours, and for me, it was like I walked away and like looked at the time and was like, "Whoa, man! Like, this guy's at this show. He's supposed to be selling snakes. He's supposed to be making money."
Yeah.
And granted, he had some staff there with him, but people know Brian. They want to talk to Brian, and like he's going to seal some sale deals because it's Brian. Like that's that alone. So I was shocked that he took the time, away from making money to just have a conversation.
Yeah. I felt that when I met him in person. I think it was 2022, when I actually got to meet him in person and talk to him. And dude, like, the guy, he said to me, he said, "Get your phone out." So I got my phone out. He said, "Take my number." I was like, "Okay." This isn't his phone number, This is going to be
right.
one of the, one of his team's phone numbers.
Yeah.
And and it was just like how quick he was just to befriend you, and just to be your friend. And it was really surreal. And obviously, we invited him over to the UK to one of the B2U BCs, one of the breeder club meetings. And it was just before the time, obviously, he found out the news. And he just sent me a message saying, "Look, Gav, I'd really love to come, but there's some things that have come up this way that I need to deal with." And I was like, "Look, sure, you crack on." But he was genuinely like, he was asking me for the dates, where could he stop, and that for me was just like, he was willing to put that time and effort to come all the way over into the UK,
right,
just to show the support to the community, and that really, looking back today, I was a bit like, wow, that really took me back,
Yeah,
it's crazy. And the snake bite days, and it was Brian's snake bites. I don't care who you were, you can go back now and look at those videos, and that was probably the first time that I ever saw a breeding facility, a snake facility.
Right.
Yeah. And it just blew me away. There was racks upon racks with amazing animals. And I was just like, wow, and he was just, obviously all the crew, everyone remembers Chewy, obviously, but there was so much that was invested from the team, from Brian, from Laurie and his family, just to make us aware of the reptiles, get it out there, mainstream,
and it's also like, he's doing that stuff back then, and there's no money in it. Yeah. Like when he started doing SnakeBytes, that was pre-partner program. Like it was none of that. And he was putting out money.
Yeah.
So when I went to his place, I went to the big BHB back in 2011. Yeah. And we filmed a couple episodes of SnakeBytes. This guy had a camera guy with a sound man and all this stuff, and I was like, holy crap, dude, like this is like a mini production, like this is like a whole freaking thing. And it blew me away. You know, like I've always been one to kind of want to be like, oh, I wonder how this happened. Like I love the behind the scenes stuff. Like how did you make it? So to see it, I was just like, whoa, this is nuts, man. Like he's got legit camera guy and whole crew following him around. Like this is nuts.
Yeah, and I remember seeing a picture. I can't remember. I think it was on Google or somewhere. And you've got this dude with this massive camera filming Brian, and Brian stood in front of one of his racks with his long hair, and I was just like, wow, you know, like it was a real production, and that's something that we never realized, you know, because it was on YouTube, early doors on YouTube. You know, TV was still mainstream. I think now with everything that's been streamed like Netflix, Disney Plus, you know, YouTubers kind of took a forefront, if you like, and sort of overtook television. But even then, it was still like, you know, going home, watching SnakeBytes TV, whether it be on your phone or I don't think we could on the computer, definitely, but I don't think we could get it on the TVs at the time because it wasn't that technologically, you know, advanced. And
back in the caveman years.
Yeah, back in the day. So yeah, it was just crazy to see, you know, that guy has pushed himself for as much exposure to anyone out there who will watch stuff on YouTube. And, you know, I saw people who were like, I speak to some friends and they were like, oh yeah, I saw some videos, and you sort of, oh yeah, what were they? And then they go, oh, it was this dude with the long hair, and oh yeah, that's SnakeBytes TV, and you know, so on and so forth. So he was obviously reaching people outside of the community, and I think that was kind of ingenious. You know, I think he was ingenious to me. I just thought that was absolutely awesome. You know,
no, it's true, man. So I had shared the post of his passing on my my musician page because I keep most of my stuff separate, and I had probably a dozen or more messages from people who were like, oh man, I used to watch his content, like that's why I have a bearded dragon, or that's why I got this leopard gecko. And I'm like, wait, you have a reptile? You know, like some of these people I've gigged with for years, I'm like, how have we never talked about reptiles before? But yeah, they're like, yeah, I used to watch his videos, you know, when I was younger. And it was just another moment of being like, wow, like his reach was amazing, you know.
Yeah, I think that's something that we sort of take for granted, or we forget, you know, because we're just wrapped up in things. And I just think it's so crazy to see it, just, you know, looking back and then looking to where we are now. I mean, you know, it's just nuts. It's just nuts. I'm just really watching people comment as well, and there's apparently an episode with you in it.
Yeah, back in 2011. So if you go back into SnakeBytes days and you look up SnakeBytes TV hybrid snakes, the thumbnail is the picture of Chewy in a lab coat. There's a little skit with a little skinny nerd with a mustache, and that's me. That is 18-year-old me.
Okay. So tell us the story about that one then.
So that whole thing. So I met Brian 2 years prior. 2011, I graduated high school, and my parents surprised me with a week-long trip to go see Brian. My mom made some phone calls and spoke with Brian and Lori and planned it all out. So I was like a kid in a candy shop at that point. I was like, there's no way, you know, blah, blah, blah. So my mom and I drove. It was like 14 and a half hours. We drove out to Michigan, and she wasn't too keen on flying, so we made the drive. But we get out there, and we got to the hotel. We were both exhausted and reached out to him. We're like, hey, man, we're here. And he was like, if you guys want to come by BHB, I'll be here for maybe another hour or two before we call it a night. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. So I was like, yeah, it's only 10 minutes away. Now I'm excited again. I'm like, yeah, let's go, whatever. And so we show up and, it's the big building. So you walk in and it's the offices, the little foyer with the offices right there. And Brian came out and met us. And, he's like, thank you. I'm so excited you guys are here. And, it's going to be a great week and all this stuff. And he's like, let me give you a tour of the place really quick. And I'm like, this is the last hour of your day, bro. Like, you don't have to do that, man. Like, we just drove for 40, he's like, no, we're going to give you a tour. So he opens the first door and then bam, we're in the Python room. And my jaw hit the floor.
No way.
And I'll preface by saying, like, at this point in my life, I have known Kevin and been to Nerd a bunch of times. So I've seen like a large collection of snakes before, but like Nerd is set up like a giant hallway and then there's different rooms that break off. And it's a really great way to keep things separate. BHB was you open the door and it's a giant room. A singular giant room with aisles of racks. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? And so you walk through, it was like immediately off to the right, the wall like goes in a little bit. And it was like all the big snakes, all like the berms and retics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And forward was FB90 drawers on the base of the racks, probably like 3 levels high. And then CB70s. So the FB90 drawers had like Walma pythons and carpet pythons and stuff like that. And then it was ball pythons. And it went that way for the majority of the wall. And then the back room was that wall of baby racks. Right. And I thought 2 things immediately was I have these cool, fun effects happening on my live stream here.
Well, that's cool.
I thought 2 things. I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen this many snakes. And oh my God, do you know how much all these Freedom Breeder Rex cost?
Yeah.
I was like those 2 thoughts. But so we start walking down aisles of snakes and he's like, this is a chocolate lemon blast. And just start showing all these really cool ball pythons. And I was like, oh my God. So then we go into the next room, which was the colubrid room. And it was, again, like another slap in the face of just racks of snakes. And, you look down an aisle. He's like, yeah, that's probably about like 1,000 snakes just on this section of the wall. And I was like, oh my God, dude, like what the heck? So anyway, so we finished up that tour and, on the way out, he was like, hey, what hotel are you staying at? And my mom was really like, this trip is for you. Like, you do whatever you want. I'll go shopping or do something or just enjoy a little alone time, here at the hotel, whatever. So we told him where he was. Brian was like, all right, cool. I'll pick you up in the morning and we'll start working, So I was basically like there to like just jump right in. Right. And just start. I was helping him clean snakes and we're running to Home Depot to fix hose reels that have broken in the python room. And we're collecting colubrid eggs. And it was, dude, it was nuts, man. And then, he was like, all right, we're going to film an episode of SnakeBytes. Do you want to be in one? And I was like, hell yeah, man. Yeah, I would love to, I'd love to do it. So we were trying to figure out exactly what the skit was going to be. And so we decided the skit would be like, somebody gets the chance to come work at BHB for the day and they're all excited, but it's not what it seems. And as soon as I get dropped off, I basically get like the short end of the stick for everything. I get tortured. I'm the tormented employee. Right. So one of the scenes is like Brian can't find the egg book for the colubrid room. So he calls me and I'm like, do you want me to help you find the egg book? And he's like, no, I want you to get your ass on this ladder and inventory every single egg that's in this room and, whatever. So it's just a giant skit. We're having fun. The last part of it, also, he would never call me by my actual name. He called me like 7 different names. And so it was hilarious. So, he's like, I can't find my keys. We got to find my keys. So I'm like, oh, I'll help you look for the keys. He's like, I must have thrown them away. We got to check the dumpster. So they put me in the dumpster in the back And there's like no trash in there or anything like that. But throw me in the dumpster, and him and Lori come up, and he's like, "Hey, Johan, did you find those keys yet?"
Oh, okay.
And I pop out of the dumpster, and I'm like, "I don't think they're in here." And he's like, "Trust me, they're in there. They have to be." And when I go back in the dumpster, he like holds up the keys, and him and Lori like laugh and walk away. And then Chewie comes and throws trash in the dumpster. But
well, just so you know, I just so happened to find
Did you find it?
Let me just share this with you guys.
Yep,
that
is it. That is it.
That is the young man there. Wow, look at that. Straight there, man. And for those who are interested, obviously there is the title, SnakeBytes TV, Hybrid Snakes. And again, I you know what? I didn't even, looking back now, I remember, I mean, you can see, I mean, there's Chewie, good old Chewie. But yeah, I remember watching all them, and now seeing that episode now, yeah, that's you, dude. There you are. There you are in the
dumpster, man. Oh man,
yeah.
I gotta let you go. All right, bye. Hey, Lori, my mom's gonna be here in a few minutes. I was wondering if I could just, kind of chill out. It's been a long day.
No, a few minutes. Do you know how much work that needs to be done there? I would appreciate it if you could work for those few minutes you're waiting.
Hey, Johan,
man,
did you find those keys yet?
No, I don't think they're in here.
Trust me, keep looking. They're in there. You better find them.
That's cool.
So how'd everything go?
Oh, gosh. Jared was so good.
Jared?
He had a great time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Hey,
Hi.
you guys are welcome
Thanks.
back anytime.
Great, thanks.
Seriously.
So what'd you end up doing?
Let's just go.
I love company.
Oh, they're the best.
Wow.
Those were fun times, man.
That's crazy. That was just crazy. That mustache is just
wow. Man.
Pure comedy value.
Yeah, dude. No, that was such a fun time, man. And back then, I mean, every episode had a little skit in it, So I was like, yeah, I get to be part of the skit. But the thing that made that trip that much more special was we went during the 4th of July. So obviously there was a day that that BHP was closed. So we ended up just hanging out. And we went to Lori's parents' house, and dude, we played volleyball, we're playing soccer, we lit a quarter stick of dynamite off in his father-in-law's backyard. It was freaking awesome. Yeah, he shows it to me. He's like, "You want to go have some fun?" I was like, "Hell yeah, let's blow some shit up."
Yeah, that's just, I mean, stuff like that. People wouldn't know. That's all private memories that you and Brian and the team and the family shared. But it's so. Yeah. It's such a breath of fresh air to hear that, I think that's just That's
and
just nuts.
It was also like it was a holiday.
Yeah.
Like he could have just been like, all right, have a great day, just go do whatever, check out the area, and I'll come pick you up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or it could have been like, oh, there's gonna be fireworks over here if you want to go check it out. And he was like, no, like come hang out with me and my family.
That's crazy.
Like that, that to me was crazy too. We went to go see Transformers 3D in theaters. Like he's just like, let's go. Like, let's just have a great time. He was as much about hanging out as he was, getting work done. Like he wanted to enjoy the time. And looking back on that and looking, thinking about everything that he had to do just in general for work, it's just like, yeah, you sure you got time to go watch a 3-hour movie? Like, what are we doing? Man, going that same trip, like going to his house, watching an MMA fight in the basement with him and his brother-in-law Lee, and just a handful of guys. Like it was just, dude, it was just crazy. Like
Dude.
I had never seen a TV that big in my life. He had like this huge, you know, this was 2011, so it wasn't like massive flat screen or anything, but it was this big TV. I was like, well, I might be a little smaller than this TV. Like that's, you know, like it's just crazy, man. Movies, like I think most people know that he was like a big movie guy.
Yeah.
And there's just DVDs and Blu-rays, like stacks of them. And I was like, whoa, man, like this is nuts, you know.
Dude, that, I mean, just watching that as well, and just hearing your story, obviously, just, you know, that wasn't for public. Yeah.
Right.
And he still went out of his way. He wasn't in front of a camera. He still went out of his way to make you feel welcome and part of the family.
Yeah, 100%. 100% went above and beyond, man. And it was crazy. And every time I went to visit him, it was the same way. Like was always immediately welcomed with, you know, a hug. What's going on, man? Like, hey, you know, let's go grab dinner. Let's go do that. You know, like, you know, let's do something, you know? And I joked, I posted a story the day that we all learned that he had passed. And I was saying how pretty much every trip I'd ever taken out to see him, except maybe the last 2 or 3, we always had to go to Home Depot because he was always working on a project. And he would have always forgotten something or needed one extra thing because it became a bigger project than he expected. And one time I went up there and he was like, hey, man, I got to go get some doors. Do you want to come with me to Home Depot? I was like, sure. It was when they were building out the rooms in the basement of the Reptarium. And he had to get a new door for the colubrid room and for the New Caledonia room and everything. I'm like, yeah, man, shit, let's go get some doors, dude.
Why not?
You know?
Why not? It's part of and parcel. It's almost like it's a given. You know, now every time you go there, you've got to go to Home Depot. I'm pretty confident you won't need to go to Home Depot at the aquarium because obviously it's looking massive. They've got amazing team on there. Obviously, out, and I think that place is going to be. It's going to be legendary. You know, I think it's going to be absolutely nuts.
It really is, man. I told him when I was up there last month. I went to see him last month to bring him that Amazon tree boa, and
I saw that.
Him and Lori and I went to the aquarium, and I was blown away. But I said to him, I was like, man, I said, I don't know if you remember, but I was here when you learned that building was for sale. I said, and I came back up not long after the front facade had been ripped off of the building. It was just all boarded up. And I was like, you brought me over here and you couldn't turn on the lights. The only way you could turn on the lights was you had to walk all the way to the back of the building, go to the breaker box and turn on the breaker to see the lights. And I was like, and you walked me through this place with the vision. Like you told me, like, oh yeah, you know, reptiles are going to be here, and then there's going to be a center aisle. Then you're going to walk around, and you know, this is going to be the mammals. This is fresh water. Like he already saw it in an empty building. Like there's nothing but rubble and dust, you know, from the concrete just on the floor. That was it. And then to seeing it last month, I was like, man, this is insane. Like, you know, I was like, I could kind of grasp the concept of what he was talking about when it was blank, but to then see it and get the chance to walk through it, I was like, whoa, man, this is next level.
Yeah, it's
you know,
crazy.
It really is crazy.
I think he you know, he in any species of the exotic world, you know, he had an influence in, you know. And I remember when Brian was breaking into the venomous world, and you know, whether or not he was in it early doors or not, I don't know. But I noticed, like when he started to break into the venomous stuff, you know, he got a lot of flack. You know, he got a lot of heat from the venomous community, majority, but still. And I just thought, you know, look, this guy's here trying to help show and educate, like Steve Irwin did, like many of the greats did. You know, why not just accept him for who he is? And you telling that story, you know, he just loved to educate, and him having that vision of the Reptarium, and then obviously the legacy. It's just, it just blows your mind, you know. It really does. And stuff like we're gonna. I just want to touch on some of his projects, like for example,
sure.
Like the pinstripe. Yeah, I think that's the one I remember early on in the days. It was like Nerd with the spider, and Brian with the pinstripe.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that? Any stories or?
Yeah, I mean, so I think when I think about his contribution to ball pythons, right, one of the things that I think back to is the fact that he was one of the handful of people that even entertained ball pythons back in the day. Because I think a lot of people don't realize, because they're so popular now, there was a point when the hobby struggled to keep ball pythons alive. They always tended to be really picky, you know, all the imports, picky feeders, didn't want to eat. They'd rather just wither away. So people were just kind of writing them off left and right. And Brian and Kevin and VPI and like the Sutherlands at TSK, like that was kind of like the core of people that were like, nah, we just got to figure it out. Like, but there's something here. So saying that to say, like, they figured it out, then they Brian and Kevin both go in on the hypo project. You know, they both got their hands on some hypo stuff. And then of course Brian gets the pinstripe gene. Here's what's interesting about pin, right? We're talking about a time where you can't send photos via text. Like you're not getting a good image out of anywhere. You know, you're not getting a good picture quality in the US, let alone in West Africa. Right. Yeah. So the phone call is, hey, I got this really cool ball python. It's got these really thin, you know, pattern to it. Like it's really bizarre. $75,000.
What?
So 75 grand sight unseen, no pictures, no nothing, just the description of the contact.
Wow.
And then you got to pray to God that it's actually a genetic thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember when the pinstripe was founded, but that's got to have been 2002, 2003, maybe.
Like, yeah, early. I think I want to say early 2000s. Yeah.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's crazy, because the Pastel Jungle, Greg and Greg Rettiani, I think, just beat Kevin to the post, proving them out.
Yep.
Was that before the pinstripe, or was that after? I think, or around about the same time.
I think the pastel stuff was before.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. And funny deviation really quick with Kevin and Greg on that. So they were breeding the pastels, right? Kevin bred pastel to normal, got all normals. He got shit odds. And Greg bred pastel to normal and got pastels and normals. So Kevin thought his pastel was recessive.
No way.
Yeah,
because I know the first pairing that Greg did, he got 7 pastels.
Yeah,
and I know he kept one. 2 went over to Mark Mendek over at Marcus Jane, and I think 4 or 5 of them went to the Sutherlands TSK, because I know they bred them to clown early on, and made pastel het clowns.
Yes.
So. And then obviously the one for me, and the reason why I'm talking about the pinstripe is because the bumblebee is what got me. The spider and the pastel got me. And obviously we had the lemon blast. So it was almost like, the spider versus pinstripe, and then it was bumblebee versus the lemon blast, you know, and it was kind of a bit like, wow, what's next? You know?
Yeah. So I just looked it up really quick just to see. So 2001 was when Pinstripe was proven out. So
okay.
Early, very early on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's just, it just goes to show, I mean, we're still early in the, you know, we've just been doing this, what we've been breeding ball pythons, let's just say 25 years. Yeah,
Right.
we're only 25 years into it. And the history that has been made up through the pioneers like Kevin, like TSK, like Brian, has led us to where we are now, you know. And, you know, the Bumblebee was what got me in. And then when I saw the Xantic Clown, that just blew my mind. So, and the natural progression was to, you know, get pinstriping. And I remember getting my first pinstripe, and it just looking at it and just going, wow, you know, I can't remember the price at the time, but I'm sure Brian was selling them for around 20, 25K, maybe, may even be more. I don't know. I mean, if you know, please elaborate. But yeah, it just blew my mind, you know.
Yeah, I know that Brian had told me that I don't remember how much he was selling them for, but I remember that initial pinstripe investment was 75 grand. And, you know, of course, it's like, I got to breed it to as much as possible to make, you know, try to make this money back. And I think he said it was the first year in production, the ROI was 2.5 million.
Wow.
And that, I mean, talk about, you know, hitting it out of the park. Because again, sight unseen, and then you get this snake and you're like, well, I hope this proves out genetic, you know, and then it's, you know, bam, you know, you get lucky with something like that. And to the same vein, the opposite end, for those of you guys who remember the Viper ball python.
Dude, we're going to get there.
Okay.
We're going to segue into that one.
Okay. All right.
Because the Viper ball was something that I remember looking on Ralph Davis's page and seeing it on his forum and going, what the hell is that? And I've actually got a video which we will share very soon of a clip it and the story, Brian actually telling the story. So Brian's going to be with us tonight telling us this story. So I think that's going to be cool. But the Viper ball was insane. Obviously, he brought the Scalus, which I know was very controversial, but back in the day, this was like the pinnacle. You know, it was like, what could we get? Maybe a Scalus ball python, and boom, there it was. You know,
and think about it, like if initially that snake was an animal that Brian didn't even want. It was coming in an import, and the guy was like, I got this weird ball python. He's like missing a couple scales on the head. And Brian's like, nah, I don't want it. And the guy's like, oh, just give me $100. Just throw me an extra $100 and I'll just throw it in.
I'll throw it in.
And he does. And then whatever happens up here, Mr. Visionary, he's looking at this snake missing a couple scales. And I bet if I breed two of these together, I get a snake with no scales. Who the hell thinks that?
I remember him having that conversation and talking to people and actually saying, you know, if I can reproduce this, and maybe the effect would be a scaleless ball python. And again, like you said, a lot of people was like, you crazy? Like,
yeah, like what are you talking about?
Yeah, and Phil from Observo just said he was sending the cash through the post.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff going on like that. It was crazy. But yeah, it was nuts. And I mean, these backstories are so important because what people don't understand is what he put on the line, and not obviously only, you know, Brian, but Brian, what he did and put on the line for us to have some crazy combos now is just not. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Nobody's doing that now.
No one's sending Noah £75,000 for a ball. That's for sure.
Right.
I can tell you that now. Okay. Let's talk about the Viper Ball, because I can
Yeah.
see in the chat a lot of people are interested. Some of you may
Yep.
not know. I've had loads of comments coming in, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah, so we've got. I first met Brian in 1998. Imported snakes from him in 1990. Those genetics are still a cornerstone in my collection. Definitely,
Yeah.
totally agree. So yeah, okay. Just the comments are absolutely amazing. I love people's stories. I love, what they've heard and what they yeah. So the Viper Ball. I'm going to show you guys the Viper Ball for reference, which and there's a video as well which I'll play, but I'm going to share this one with you so you guys can see exactly what the Viper Ball looked like,
Yeah.
And this is from Ralph Davis's website, The Matrix, as he called it, which was, and if you go to this website, you'll see a lot of mutations there, which wasn't proven out at the time. There was the Burgundy, which I think is different to the Burgundy to what we have now. And there was all sorts of stuff. Dirty Joe. There was loads. Guys, you will enjoy watching this.
Yeah.
But this was the animal in question. This is the Viper Ball. And yeah, Jeremy,
It's nuts.
It's nuts now as a single mutation. If we had that as a single mutation, that's kind of nuts. But back then, Jeremy, that was mind blowing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think that's the thing to keep in mind too. Is like we're talking early 2000s when all the chaos of 15 gene snakes didn't exist. Like we're talking like, pewters are still amazing. Inferno is like the hottest multi-gene thing that exists. So something like this, we're looking at a ball python that we're just like, wait, why is it? This doesn't even look close to right.
And I think this is the only picture that still exists on the internet now. But I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll quickly jump into the video with Brian. Let's bring Brian on. Why not? Let's bring him on. Right, let's do this. Here we go. So,
memory as a kid, I want you to verify if it's true or not.
Yes.
When I was a kid, I had a favorite ball python, and I don't know why. It was a pattern that made me like it, obviously. But it was called the Viper.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Viper Ball.
Yeah.
And I used to like that one. Is that around?
All right, so let me tell the story of the Viper Ball python really quick.
Let's tell the sad story.
The sad story.
Because I just before we go, because I don't know any of the truth. I just remember being a kid looking at it, and I feel like I told you should breed this.
Yeah.
Because I liked it.
Yeah. So this was in the heyday of ball pythons, coming out of West Africa. And we had this is like the same. As a matter of fact, the same year we bought the Viper Ball, we bought the Sunset Project.
Right.
The Sunset Male.
Can I just preface this to say,
go ahead.
Okay.
What did I bring up?
No.
It's
I'm
okay.
just going to say that, in the heyday of ball pythons and, oh my God, these people made so much money.
Yeah.
This is how this stuff happened, is you put out a shit ton of money for unproven stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes you made your money.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I always said that, the way with a person like me, it's like if I made $200,000.
It was a gamble, just like going to Vegas.
Yeah. If I made $200,000, I spent $210,000 on the next project. That's how my projects went. But so the Viper Ball was the same year as the Sunset Project. Okay. And it was $55,000 for a Viper Ball python outside of one snake, a crocodile. It was very interesting looking. Unfortunately, it was before the internet really was happening. So there's one shitty picture online of the animal.
I don't even think we had smartphones back then.
No, we did not have smartphones. No,
so that's why there's not a whole lot of pictures of it.
No. There's one picture I know of, and it still surfaces online, so you can look it up. It's actually the picture online now comes from the Ralph Davis forum. Way back in the day, it's still on there.
Yeah, that is.
So, anyways, point is, it was a boy. We bred it. I produced a whole bunch of. First off, I thought it might be co-dominant, and so I produced a whole bunch of normal-looking offspring, a whole bunch, like 20 of them. And so I thought, all right, well, it's got to be recessive because it was a wildly radical different, like you said,
Yeah,
looked
it
very
looked
different.
cool, yeah.
Super cool. And the reason it was called a viper ball python is Emmanuel Noah in Accra, Ghana, the guy from Africa, said he thought it looked like a cross between a gaboon viper and a ball python.
Yeah.
And so regardless, we raised it up. We produced babies. We raised those babies up. We bred them every way to Sunday. I mean, we bred them, you know, head to head.
Well,
we bred, you know.
What's funny as a side note is you worked that project way harder.
Yeah, and we
than
didn't work the
than
sunset.
the sunset
Yeah.
project.
The sunset I thought was a dead project, and then
Yep.
ultimately down the road the sunset worked out, and then the viper ball there was never it just wasn't
So weird.
genetic.
It was
Just
just a random one-time mutation that never pure.
Yeah, so it never reproduced. Yeah, it
Right.
never.
Okay, that's really interesting to me
Yeah.
because like I said, I was a kid that I really liked that snake, and now skip forward, and now this was a few months ago. I think that of course I'm blanking on the name. Nerd. He
Yeah.
had this like really cool eclipse ball
Paradox.
python. Oh yeah, paradox. I
Yeah,
said eclipse. I
paradox,
meant
yeah.
to say paradox. Ball python that was
Yeah.
in your last visit to his
Yep,
place.
I remember.
And I remember I asked you, I was like, no way, like, can you reproduce that? And you're like, no, it's one of
no.
a kind, but
Yeah.
you know, if someone wants to pay big bucks, you can do it. But
Yeah.
the moral of the story was, it's sad you can't reproduce those.
So is that
because
one
they're
of
really
his like
beautiful.
5 million mutations?
No, it was
or
just
is that an
it was
import?
no, it was we produced paradox.
I think it
before.
was
It's a
actually
paradox.
relatively
Oh, okay.
mild.
It's a paradox,
so
yeah.
it's just a paradox.
Yeah, it's
okay.
just
It was just a
paradox.
paradox.
Well,
It's just a
Kevin,
paradox.
you know, Kevin has these
Right.
things
Yeah.
with like literally 20 genes that you could never reproduce.
Yeah,
if
no.
you
It was
wanted
just
to,
a
so I didn't
really
know.
cool
Okay.
paradox.
Yeah,
like
it
it
was
was
just a really
gray and
yeah,
like
it was really,
black.
yeah,
and
it was
the
really
really
beautiful.
bold whites.
Yeah, it was super beautiful, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a one-off. Paradoxing is just bleeding of genes, basically.
So I thought we'd hear that from the horse's mouth. You know, I just thought, what a video. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. I just thought that
It's
was great.
crazy. Could you imagine though, 55 grand, and it doesn't prove out?
And that's what a lot of people, you know, they don't realize that, you know, people think that, oh yeah, you're going to make millions of pounds and dollars off these animals, but really, like he said there, for every 200,000 he made, he spent 210. You know,
Right.
so it was just absolutely nuts. And I thought that was really good. You know, listening to that story about the Viper Ball, because there's a lot of new people in this hobby who have never heard of the Viper Ball or have never seen the Viper Ball.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to touch on that just to show the level of commitment he had to the hobby. You know, yes, it would, you know, look, it's a business, you know, and businesses have to make money.
Right.
But you could see the passion because
100%.
he was the one convincing Laurie to look, we've got to send $55,000 to this guy in Africa, you know?
Oh gosh, it's true. And I think it's important to note too on that, especially since he's saying, you know, the sunset came in the same time. He also thought the sunset was a co-dominant animal. And when he bred that and got a bunch of normals because of what he experienced with the Viper Ball, he was like, this is, you know, whatever. And then, you know, lo and behold, it turns out to be recessive. And now it's becoming such a popular gene now that we see. And then I see people have been mentioning the Laurie Ball.
Yeah.
That's another good one. In the same, like similar complexes like the het red axanthic kind of stuff. But a different mildly different appearance, and then the super is wildly different.
Yeah, because he's also, they had their line of chocolate, the BHB line of chocolate as well. I've just written down some notes. I've got the Laurie Ball, we got the sunset, obviously. And what's crazy, I remember watching the video of the Sunset Project when they actually found out it was a recessive and they produced it. And I sat there and I was like, wow. I mean, I think it was 2010, maybe 2011 when it was produced.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking they got it in 2005 and didn't reproduce it until 2010 or 2012.
Right.
It's just crazy to think now that I've got some sunset stuff, which all originated from that project, from that male.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
No, it's true. It's true. And far past ball pythons. I know we're focusing on ball pythons here, but he was also a pioneer in a lot of colubrid projects as well. The tangerine albino Honduran milk snakes was his thing. I mean, there's so many. There's some hognose mutations. I think the pink pastel was one of the things that he helped pioneer. There's so much, like we know Brian as the ball python guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's that much more, which is crazy to think. It's insane. It's really just insane.
And again, we're talking about just ball pythons, but like you said, there was so many other projects he was involved in. Whether he was the founder of the project or whether he just brought them to market, made them available. I remember him getting into the palmetto corn snake as well project. There was all sorts that I remember him just throwing it down and just showing, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy,
Yeah.
There was just so much, and this is something that I wanted to bring to the tribute video tonight, was how much he contributed, and not, it wasn't just a money thing. It was passion through. And I think that's what made him very successful. And he lost. And the one thing he never spoke about really, other than when he was pressed, was how much money he lost versus how much money he actually made. All for the love of animals,
It's true.
But
it's true.
It was just absolutely nuts.
Yeah. Is for the passion of animals and making sure that other people loved the animals.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's why the Reptarium exists.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, like breeding snakes has been great. It's allowed me to do all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I want people to love these animals. And, certainly SnakeBytes and getting a glimpse into the big large scale breeding facility was a foundation, but then you watched this transition, this evolution of him going into the Reptarium and focusing more on education. And it's like, hey, if we breed, something at the zoo, great, but it's not necessarily the focus.
Yeah.
We just want people to love the animals and enjoy the animals. And that's been such a forefront thing for him. And, along the way, he's been able to breed stuff, which is, over there, which has been great. Like I remember when he bred Ivy, he was like the green anaconda. He's like, man, I'm so excited, to maybe have, baby anacondas. He's like, but she's so big. I don't know if I missed the ovulation. Like, I don't know what I'm, 100% what I'm looking for, because it's an anaconda. It's already fat, And I remember taking a picture. I was up there. I took a picture of her and I sent it to Kevin, because Kevin's bred green anacondas numerous times. So I'm like, she looks gravid to me. I've bred boas enough to look for some of the minute things. And Kevin's response was gravid as fuck. So I showed that to Brian. I was like, you'll have babies, buddy.
Yeah. It's and obviously with anacondas being a water boa, a lot of people just, it is, they, I remember people, they talk about breeding ball. Oh, it's easy to breed ball pythons. And yeah, it's easy now, thanks to people like Brian, thanks to people like Kevin, people putting out videos, people putting out information. It's easy now. Back then, even someone someone who has so many years experience like Brian, trying to breed an anaconda and just like, I haven't got a clue,
Right. Dude, I remember you know, for anybody who's like watched his stuff for a long time, he used to always talk about how breeding boas was a challenge for him. He could never get breeding boa constrictors down to a science. And I remember the first time I had ever bred red-tailed boas. You know, and there's like a saying in the boa community, like boas will break your heart when it comes to breeding, because
did you buy Jeremy Stone's DVD?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But so it's just like, man, you know, you can't tell with a boa until you get those babies. So you're like, yeah, I bred it, ovulated, it's going to be great. And then you get a litter of stillborns and slugs and whatever, and you're just like crushed, right? So I remember the first time I bred red-tailed boas, I had 100% success. I had 0 slugs. I had 0. So I remember taking a picture of that litter and sending it to Brian and being like, it's not that hard, buddy.
Not that it wasn't luck, you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And he was like, yeah, good job.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you know, but it was funny, man. You know, I mean, like, I think for me, one of the elements of Brian too was, you know, as much as he was a mentor and everything to me, and I could always ask him questions and have those moments, he was a friend. So we're throwing jokes and jabs at each other, you know, periodically and whatever. And I remember being up there. It was when I was up there in 2011, Kevin had called me and he was like, what are you doing? He didn't know that I was going to see Brian. And I was like, oh, I'm with Barczyk right now. And he's like, we're with Barczyk. Where is he? And I was like, he's Michigan. I drove out to Michigan. He was like, oh, so you're spending a week with Uncle Brian, huh? And he's like, I'm sorry you have to look at all that dirt. And I was like, what are you talking about? And for those of you who don't know, to make the comparison, what Kabelka and Ozzy are today is what Brian and Kevin were the last iteration of ball pythons.
100%.
Right.
It's like, I've spoken about this before. It's almost like a level 1 generation, and then you got like a level 2 generation, and obviously Justin brought his first clown off Brian. I think it was 2004, something like that. And so again, remember watching back, and you'd got very quickly, don't mean to jump in, but I remember watching some of the forums, Bush League Breeders Club and all that sort of stuff, and pictures going up, and Kevin doing this and Brian doing that, and then all of a sudden Ozzy was the young boy, and he come up and post his picture, and they'd all be like, oh, screw you, Ozzy, you know what I mean? Just I remember that, watching with popcorn, you know, just refreshing the page on the computer, you know.
No, it's true, man.
Crazy.
It's true. But yeah, so the joke used to always be between Brian and Kevin that, you know, Brian really favored the earth tone genes, yellow belly, cinnamon, black pastel, like all that stuff, chocolate, you know. And Kevin was, I want to make the brightest, coolest looking thing ever. So you go see Brian, you're looking at dirt. You go see Kevin, you better have your sunglasses ready. Like that was the joke of the time, man. And so it was just funny for him to call me and be like, oh, I'm sorry, you got to look at all that dirt. You know?
And even to this day, I mean, it was a recent video that they did, or they was joking about how, you know, Brian loves his dirt and his dirt-colored ball pythons, and it just shows that friendship, even though it was rivalry, you know, it was still a friendship. You know, I'm pretty confident if Kevin was in trouble, Brian would be there, and vice versa. You know, so he certainly got that sort of sense of. It was almost like they were battling to push each other. You know. To be greater than each other, you know, it was it was really weird. It was really weird. And then, you know, obviously before Brian and Kevin, it was like, you know, Bob Clark, and you know, you had the greats. You know, it was weird to have these certain levels of people coming up, you know, and then seeing where they are in the hobby. It was just crazy. And a couple of people like mentioned about the colubrid stuff as well, and thanks for bringing that up, Jeremy, because you know, I'm not a colubrid guy. I've kept corn snakes. I've had colubrids before in the past, but this video, this live, I just wanted to touch on the fact of what they have brought, you know, and
Right.
people like Brian, you know, you may be new to the hobby, you may just keep a bearded dragon, a leopard gecko, a corn snake. All that has stemmed from the videos, you know, the SnakeBytes
Right.
TV. They did animal bites as well, didn't they? Was it Animal Bites as well?
Yep.
They did
Animal
that,
Bites
and they were
TV.
doing,
Yep.
yeah, Animal Bites TV, and they were doing so much, and again, just to try and get the word out there, you know.
Yeah,
it's just,
that was the whole thing. Was like, you know, like Brian with Animal Bites TV. It was like, you know, after, I think we're all aware, like after Steve Irwin passed, like when it came to animal related content on TV, it was never the same. You know, we went from, you know, having guys like Steve and Jeff Corwin and Nigel Marvin and all these guys that were like highlighting the animals in a real but genuine way, to slowly everything's like a giant man-eating python ravages somebody's neighborhood. You know, it's just all the garbage that we see now. So the concept was to try to provide like a small, you know, network of shows that would air throughout the week that would just be some kind of different positive highlight on animals. You know, my buddy Jason Miller was doing like 5 weird animal facts. You know, like just like the, you know, those kind of things that were the whole concept was educating on animals, getting people interested in animals that wasn't so scripted.
What was great about Animal Bites TV, for those who didn't know, it was, I presume it was the brainchild of Brian, but he got other influencers involved who weren't, and influencers now is what we call people on that sort of platform, but they were like, you know, Greg Graziani. We had the Python Hunter, you know, and we had, like you said, we had 5 weird animal facts. And every week there was someone new presenting something about that particular animal. And Brian wouldn't stand there to pretend to know he knew what he was on about. He sort of passed the flame, if you like, to other people and went, right, you know more about, you know, crocodilians than I do. You do this segment, you know. It was nuts.
And that was one of the things that I appreciated the most about him, was if he didn't have an answer, he would tell you, I'm just not sure, you know, but chances are he knew someone who could have the, you know, who would have the answer for you, and he'd either put you in touch with them or he'd call them right then and there and figure it out. You know.
I want to touch on something that Tully's just reached out and said that I remember watching the forums back in the day, and if someone said that something was allelic, and I remember when Kevin mentioned about the sex link trait, or there was something going on and everyone was losing their mind. And you got to think back in them days, like allelic wasn't a thing. It was like, you know, people had yellow bellies in their collection and they were still buying the white snake from Africa that was actually coming in as an ivory, you know, and it was just like, I've just paid $50,000 for this snake and I had the ingredients already in my collection to make it. I just didn't know. You know?
Exactly, man. Exactly.
It was just crazy. You know?
It's nuts, man. And you know, to the point you had made before, like we've really only been in the genetic aspect of breeding ball pythons for really less than 30 years, maybe 30 years max. You know, when it really comes down to it. So there's still stuff that we're learning. I mean, hell, I was still working at Nerd when we figured out that cryptic and clown were allelic. You know, and you know, like I remember seeing Billy's video on it, and then I chased Kevin down because I was like, you're never gonna believe what I just found out. And he's like, what? Because cryptic, for those who don't know, originated with Kevin. And and then he was breeding it. He didn't think it was recessive, and he wasn't interested with anything that was popping out, so he got rid of that project, sent it all. I think it all ended up going to the Bells or whatever.
I remember a lot of that stuff coming from the Bells, and obviously I thought it came from the Bells, but you're telling me it came from
it was
Kevin. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I was like, "You're never gonna believe this." He's like, "What?" I was like, "Remember all that cryptic stuff you had?" And he's like, "Yeah, there's garbage." And I was like, "Well, it's allelic to clown." And he was like, "No fucking way." And I was like, "Yep, I kid you not, dude. We scoured the building for everything that was pos het cryptic." Like he had like one visual cryptic that was just kind of floating around, and he had like some random hets, and he was like, "Clown, put everything to clown."
And again, that just goes to show that, you know, even nowadays when we find stuff out, like who'd have thought spot nose and chocolate would be allelic? You
Right.
know, who would think that? You know, they don't look alike, they don't act the same in combos, and yet, boom, they're allelic.
Yep.
And just imagine, and let's go back to 2010, not even early doors, but let's just say 2010.
Yeah.
If that had came out on the forums, no, everyone would they just wouldn't want to know you. They think that guy's crazy. He needs to be sectioned.
Yeah.
You know, you're absolutely nuts. You know.
Yep.
And it just goes to show. And again, we speak about chocolate. We speak about spot nose being allelic. You know, I remember again another guy we lost, Ben Rennick.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't sell spot noses. He was just holding them back. And if only he knew then they were allelic to chocolate. And, you know, it just goes to show the history and what's important. And I think this live is what I want to get across, is that a lot of this all relates back to the early days with people like Brian putting in the time, the effort, the money, the risk to bring these to the forefront of where we are. Get them out of Africa. Let's get them to, you know, in our breeding facility, and let's make something. And we look at these animals nowadays, and we just, I wanted this sort of live to be a case of, let's just look at what we've got and be thankful of where they've come from. You know.
Yes.
And that's what this live is about. You know.
Yeah.
It's all about that. You telling these stories on a personal level, which I thought, you know what, Jeremy would have some amazing stories with Brian, and just some factual stuff, first-hand information, and just sharing the memories, you know.
Yeah. No, exactly, man. You know, I said a while back on one of my podcasts, when we think about like the evolution of the reptile industry, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple different generations. You know, and I think if you look at guys like Crutchfield and Bob Applegate and Lee Abbott, and like a lot of those guys are like the early guys that are like in their 70s or later now. Those are the guys that they were interested in reptiles, of course, but they were the ones that were trying to figure out how to keep these animals alive.
Yeah.
Right. The next generation was the Brian, the Kevin, the Bob Clark, the Pete Call. Those were the guys that figured out how to turn this thing into an industry, right? They figured out how to bring it to market, you know, like, hell, BHB, you know, somebody said BHB priceless from the 90s, or I still have the BHB. They were the first company to do color pamphlets, you know, and like this was nuts. You know, like nobody thought about doing anything like that, you know. So that was the generation of bringing it to market. You know, and now, like I would say, like my generation, the tail end of the Brian and Kevin generation into my generation has been the bring it to social media. Right, like let's get it to the masses now, because now we're not the weirdo that keeps a snake, you know, down the block. It's everybody's got a bearded dragon, you know, everybody's got a leopard gecko, you know. So it's interesting to see the evolution of the industry for you know, from the last, you know, 40-50 years, really. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for exactly as you were saying, the risk, the passion and the willingness to take the risks of the guys like Brian and Kevin, we wouldn't have anything that we've got. Imagine if if they didn't like ball pythons. Imagine if it was just like, nah, it's a garbage snake. I don't want to deal with a snake that doesn't want to eat. You know, it's $5. Like I don't want to do that. None of this would exist.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the whole point of what I wanted to say regarding this tribute to Brian Barczyk, is that, you know, those guys brought those animals out of Africa on a whim.
Yep.
You know, no pictures or very little pictures or very understanding, and it completely changed where we are now. You know, and I think that's just amazing. You know, and we've got to take a moment to think about what we have and be thankful for what we have, thanks to people like Brian Barczyk. I just think he has made a massive difference to the reptile community. I think he will always make a massive difference to the reptile community, because the other thing is as well, YouTube, his videos will be on YouTube forever.
Yeah,
forever. And that's something that I genuinely believe is, you know, if it was a TV series, it'd have been gone. And do you remember that series back in the day? Oh yeah, and
right.
You could probably go and stream it somewhere, but you could just go on YouTube. You sat on a bus, you know, you're going to work, you want to watch something, you could just watch that, you know, and just be educated. You know,
that's true.
It's crazy.
That's true. Yeah,
it's crazy. Well, look, I'm not going to keep any more of your time, Jeremy. This has been an absolutely amazing live on YouTube. And guys, if you do want to show some support, obviously get over onto Brian Barczyk's Instagram page, YouTube. Go and subscribe to his channel. Go and watch some of the videos. Go all the way back and watch some of the videos, and you'll understand. And you've just seen a snippet of what we've spoken about, and kind of educate on where we are because of people like Brian, you know. And I think that will speak volumes, you know. It will speak volumes, definitely.
That's true.
Jeremy, any last words before we finish the night off?
Man, just keep the family and crew in your thoughts and prayers. You know, I mean, they're definitely going through it right now. So keep thinking about them, and you know, I mean, we're all paying attention now to, I think, how the legacy is doing. So keep watching for that. If you're able to donate or share for the cause, do so, because that's the goal. We got to finish his legacy.
Yeah, definitely. Jeremy, thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely. You know, you've this live has been absolutely amazing. Thanks to you. I
appreciate that, man.
You take it easy. I'll speak to you at the end.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man. There you have it, guys. Hopefully this video has just paid some homage to a legend, and I hope it's educated as well, and sort of give you guys an inspiration and also an understanding of where we've come from to where we are now. And I think that's the whole tribute of this video. I really want to thank Brian from the bottom of my heart for everything that he's given the hobby and the community, and I will certainly be keeping him and his family in my prayers, and we will definitely support them as much as we can. But guys, thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I love and respect you all, and I will definitely see you along with Brian in the next one. Take care, everyone.